I think the thing about with what we're doing now with the post pandemic era is a lot of people are going to conferences and doing the I call it the drive by high handshake. Hey, how are you? Let's
Mhm.
get on a Zoom and let's chat. When really before, when we didn't have that option, we would sit there, have a conversation, have coffee in person or whatever it was at a conference and say, hey, these are things we're working on. Why don't you, as a guest, come to my next luncheon or on my next team meeting? But right now, it's too much connectivity, which is a good thing, connectivity, but not authentic.
On today's episode of Grab Coffee with Me, we're sitting down with someone who has built a career around one simple idea: connections create opportunities. From business development to strategic consulting, he's helped companies grow not just by what they know, but by who they know and how they show up. He's been at the center of Tampa Bay's business community, bringing people together in ways that actually move the needle. What makes his story stand out is that it's not just about networking, it's about intentional relationships, creating value, and making a lasting impact. So grab your coffee and join me for a conversation with the founder and president of Elevate Inc., Aakash Patel. Akash, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor.
Are you a coffee drinker?
I'm not, I'm a tea drinker.
Okay, so what type of tea do you drink? What's your go-to?
I like mint tea.
Okay, and is that something that you have every day?
Like 3 times a week.
Oh, okay. All right. I have my iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. It's quick and around the corner, but
That's right.
I drink all types of coffee. But let's jump into it. I mentioned how you built your career around connecting people and also opportunities. Where did that mindset come from?
Honestly, it's just something that I wanted more people to meet people when I graduated college. And
Okay.
when I was doing it for fun, I would just sit down and have, whether they're having coffee or have tea, or just sit down and have a conversation. Friends would tell me, hey, I'm having a challenge connecting with so and so. I was like, well, I know somebody can help you, and I'll just do it kind of naturally. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at this. Like, probably trying to make it a business. And so some of my friends kind of mentored me through the process of starting a business because I never thought I would do. I'd create my own business.
So when did you start Elevate Inc.?
I started Elevate in 2012. I had the concept basically in 2011. I was doing a program called Leadership Tampa, and I was sitting, it's a program that kind of you learn about the community, and you sit on a bus with other leaders throughout the day, and so while you're on the bus, you're having conversations with people you don't really know, and they're telling you their challenges, thinking out loud, man, if I started something, I could probably get some cool customers out of this concept. But I didn't know how to create a business plan. So I took a while to kind of get off the ground. I Googled how to write a business plan. I talked to about 50 different mentors and friends and showed them the business plan and the idea and how to charge and how to invoice and how to make metrics happen. And they all
Mhm.
kind of came back to me and gave me their I would say the red line version of it. And I kind of compiled all the kind of suggestions and made it one. And I finally launched February 1, 2012. So 14 years ago.
Congrats on the success and also making things happen. But before you started Elevate, you had experience in media, hospitality, business development. How did those roles shape the way you lead today?
Yeah, so I started my career as an editorial assistant, like a secretary, basically for the Tampa Bay Times, and then I ended up
Mhm.
writing stories as an editorial assistant, and then went into the more lucrative world of PR. Similarly, you're always kind of selling yourself, you're selling ideas, you're coming up with creative strategy, and then when the market hit a recession, um, I went to work for the Westin Hotel in Tampa, and similarly, I was kind of just creating something out of nowhere because hotels are for convention visitors. Convention visitors were not coming to Tampa Bay in the 2009 timeframe because the travel was down, tourism was down. So how do you think outside the box? How do you think locally? So we had to come up with strategies on partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, partnering with a local nonprofit, and getting leaders and wealthy CEOs to the hotel to dine in our restaurant, to have an event at our event space. And so it's a very similar kind of concept of just chatting, talking about the benefits of networking and using your connections. And so all along the way, I think each career move I had what helped the launch Elevate. And basically, first few months were really tough. I had 3 clients in 2012, February, 2 clients my second month, and 1 client my third month. So I kind of had to go back to the drawing board, even though I spent time kind of making the plan and finding out what's missing. And then what I realized what's missing is the personal connection. So people like to go to events and have a buddy system and kind of walk through the room with someone they know and have a warm introduction. So I pivoted towards that model in May of 2012, and we haven't looked back since.
Now, you mentioned having a business plan, all the work that you did ahead of time, you put into play and realized that you needed to pivot or evolve. Emotionally, can you talk about what you went through during that process? Because that's some of the things that as entrepreneurs that or people that look or inspire to be entrepreneurs may be afraid to either start or to make those changes in order to become successful. So can you kind of walk us through that emotional roller coaster as you went through
Yeah, the one word to sum it up is rejection. You
that?
you get a lot of people slam doors in your face. I mean, I was 26, 27 years old talking to CEOs and asking them to take a chance on me. And the amount of people that said, "Hey, you're not credible. You don't have the experience. You're too young. You're charging too much." You just have to kind of just, swallow your pride and say, okay, cool. Well, when I'm ready, I'll come back to you. And I took notes, and then sure enough, I kept
Yeah.
going. I kept knocking on more doors, and we got through it on the rough time. And after a couple of years, started making money and started hiring employees like we have now. And then you kind of just, you realize it's part of the process. You got to be resilient. You got to be determined. We had a saying early on at Elevate, one of our slogans. Our slogan is learn, connect, and grow. We want our clients to learn about the community, connect with others, and grow their bottom line. But the other slogan we had just personally, where our motto was, be bold, be brave, and be you. That means, we don't change for anybody. We're going to stick to what we know, and we're going to keep coming after what we know. Yeah, it's anyone who started a business, Ian,
Hmm.
it's definitely a challenge, and it's something you have to be present and ready for the chance that it might not go the right way, but you know that one of them will. So you got to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a learning process. Rejection doesn't feel good. I tell you that much. It didn't feel good for me at the very beginning, but I've learned from each and every one of them and was able to grow from that point or to learn something about what I was doing wrong in order to do it right, the next time. Let's talk about your involvement in the community. You're very interwoven in the fabric of the Tampa Bay community. How many boards are you on?
Yeah, well, I'm scaled back now this year because like you said, you can basically be on as many boards and it takes up a lot of your time. But
Hmm.
well, it's 2014. The really big ones I think I would tell you is 2014. I got appointed by Governor Rick Scott, then Governor Rick Scott, now Senator, to chair the Early Learning Coalition, and I stayed on that
Hmm.
board. I've stayed on that board. I'm still the chair today. So that's the one I really focus on because it's a meaningful impact. I think every
Hmm.
child, regardless of income level, has should have an access to quality education, and so that's what our board focuses on was the younger ages. And then in 2021, Governor DeSantis, the current governor, appointed me to be on the board of Hillsborough. Now it's called Hillsborough College. It used to be called Hillsborough Community College. So those are my two
Hmm.
education boards. I'm the past president of the Center Club, which is in West Shore, the past president of the Tampa Club, which is in downtown Tampa. I'm also the past chair of the University of Tampa Board of Counselors. And I currently serve on the Indo-US, the Indian Chamber Board of Directors. So to answer your question, I'm on 3 boards right now, but being chair of one of them, you're on every committee and you have a lot of meetings. And you're the lead advocate in Tallahassee and in DC, but
Hmm.
it's rewarding work. I think everyone who is in the business community serves on one capacity for a nonprofit, whether they're a donor or they're on their board or they're on a committee for that charity. You get to meet great people and you get to learn about things that are going on and making an impact.
Yeah. How do you decide where to invest your time and energy as a leader with everything going on, the work that you're doing both with Elevate and also in the community?
Well, number one, I look at the people that are surrounding the organization. So when I look at the CEO, generally that's, the leader of the organization is the CEO. And the board's job is normally to hire and fire the CEO. That's what their purview is.
Hmm.
So I think the leader and the impact they're making. And then I look at the impact, the dollar amount impact they're making back to the community. No matter what the nonprofit is, what are they actually doing? Whether it's, the Cancer Society, the Heart Association, Leukemia Lymphoma, whatever the cause is, how much are they impacting and how many lives are they changing?
Yeah. That makes sense. You said your slogan is learn, connect, and grow. Which of those three do you think businesses struggle with the most right now?
Connect.
Connect.
I think the thing about with what we're doing now with the post pandemic era is a lot of people are going to conferences and doing the I call it the drive by high handshake. Hey, how are you? Let's get on a Zoom and let's chat. When really before, when we didn't have that option, we would sit there, have a conversation, have coffee in person or whatever it was at a conference and say, hey, these are things we're working on. Why don't you, as a guest, come to my next luncheon or on my next team meeting? But right now, it's too much connectivity, which is a good thing, connectivity, but not authentic. I read this book. One of my favorite books is called "Never Eat Alone." It's by Keith Ferrazzi, and it's kind of how I got the concept too of how to structure elevated. The concept is simple: when you're having a meal, just have a meal with someone that you don't know. And so it's like when you go
Hmm.
on a plane, you sit next to someone you don't know. You might start a conversation. You never know where it's going to go, or a field trip with your leadership class, something like that. So I think the connectivity has been lost, and that's just because the phone and the internet and television, there's so many things going on. It's hard to stay genuine in person.
So those who are listening or will be listening when this episode airs, they will probably ask the question, does it work? Right. So you've helped hundreds of companies grow through strategic connections. Can you share one story where an introduction or relationship changed everything?
Yeah, I mean, and then this is the funny part is like you never know when things are going to work out, so you can't
Mhm.
promise results, right? You hope things work out, but just like when you put a billboard up and you're advertising in a magazine or putting advertising in a billboard, you don't know who's going to call you from that billboard or a television commercial, whatever the mechanism of advertising is. So we had a client called the USF, was a college of nursing, and I mean, obviously, they graduate nurses, right? So but they're always looking for grants and special funding. And so we also had a separate client called Able Trust. Able Trust is an agency within the state that helps adults with disabilities and helps the disability community, and they authorize state grants. And so what I put two people in a room, and again, sometimes you never know where it's going to go, and one was this agency, and one was the dean of the College of Nursing, and they came to be where they could underwrite a special camp for nursing students on how to treat patients with special needs. Again, it's not something I thought of. I can't take credit for it, but I did put people in a room. But they had a
Mhm.
conversation. They said, one of our challenges is this, and the other person said, well, we could fund that. And so that's literally creating something out of thin air because no one knew that was a possibility. Both sides didn't know that was a possibility, right? So it was just more of a conversation but that's going back to connection. They had a conversation. They said, what's your challenge? This is what we're working with, and this is what we can help you with. And they met in person and they talked about it in person. And so that's just one success story over, the 14 years of business that we talk about, because that's now an ongoing event that we help create.
Nice.
And back to the point, that's lives being impacted. That's students and patients' lives being impacted in the future.
Yeah, that's great. You're deeply involved, and I've mentioned this before, in the fabric of Tampa and the growth. From an economic development to early learning initiatives, what makes Tampa Bay a unique place to build a business or to do business?
Yeah, and I think I forgot to mention I'm also on the board of the Tampa Economic Development Corporation as well. And the
Mm-hmm.
job of the Tampa Bay EDC is to recruit companies and obviously create jobs because that makes the economy go around. I think what we're talking about and why we're unique in Tampa Bay is we're an open community. I mean, you could talk about any city, any major city, the top 10 cities in America, and they can tell you every executive in town probably I use this example because it's a true example. Every executive in town that has moved here lately that we get to work with at some point has met the mayor of Tampa or the mayor of Sabine or the mayor of Clearwater, whatever city
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And during that meeting, the mayors will give out their cell phone numbers to these executives. I've seen it happen, so I know it's true. Um, but you can talk to cities in other cities in America, and they doesn't matter how many employees they have. They might meet the mayor, and they might never even get a chance to talk to them. And that's just an example of we're welcoming, we're open. We want business leaders to have access. We want them to connect. We want them to know everybody because if they know everybody, whether it's a hiring issue, they're trying to fill a vacancy, or whether they're trying to trying to get more customers, this is how you connect. And so I tell people all the time that we're open community and welcome community, and that's what sets us apart.
Yeah. And I've heard you mention before that collaboration is key to the region's success. Where do you think Tampa still has the biggest opportunity to improve?
I mean, I think the opportunities are just to join forces on bigger corporations. So the best example I can give you was a few years ago. I think it was might have been Amazon was looking for another headquarters, and then it was like different cities that paired up together, and Tampa Bay was on one of those lists. But we didn't have like obviously we didn't get it. I think Nashville and maybe the DC area got the bid. But my point is like that's something we can go after that now. We have the quality of life. We obviously have the airports that are amazing. We have housing. We have all the schooling. We have everything going for us, talent included. But we don't sometimes get together fast enough to bid on these projects.
Yeah, very true. You juggle many things, from your business to community leadership, advisory roles. How do you stay disciplined and focused across all of that?
I think it's intention, and I think every day is I try to schedule um, the meetings that are important with clients, and I also go to the events that I think are going to make an impact on the clients, their needs. But also, it's it's also just saying no sometimes, right? So if you think about when you go to one charity event and you donate, an auction item or something like that, or you make a bid, then every other charity event wants you to attend, and that's okay because that's what it's for. Sometimes you're like, "Hey, this is my interest, and I'm not interested in this," right? There's
Hmm.
this coming week or next week or whatever. There's one dinner I really want to go to, but I already committed to uh, a hockey game with clients, and so I said, unfortunately, my commitment is my word, so I can't go. And unfortunately, that's what happens. This is such a big town and a great town where then on one night there could be three great events,
Yeah.
and I want to go to all three, but I know I can't. So it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I fight that as well, so I totally understand. So if I'm a new person moving into Tampa, and I want to build a strong network quickly, where do I start? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I think the average person will probably join your chamber of commerce, which is a great idea. I like the private clubs, like I mentioned, Center Club, Tampa Club.
Hmm.
There's a few
Hmm.
others out there, and Stovall House, University Club. They're all out there. They're great. I think private clubs are great because it can be your kind of your daily collision spot where you can sit there, do some work, meet some people, and run into people, have some collisions with leaders. I also think volunteering for a board, like you mentioned. I think when I was 23 years old, one of the boards that I volunteered for was Voices for Children, which is the Guardian Ad Litem program. And I still have friends on that board today, because we were sitting in rooms trying to figure out how to raise money for a nonprofit, and we had ideas, and everyone's become different, all walks of life and success. And so you still stay in touch. And that opens up doors, right? References and testimonials and customers will come out of that. And then the last thing in is leadership programs like Leadership Tampa Bay, Leadership Tampa, Leadership Florida, Leadership St. Pete, Tampa Connection, all those kind of programs, whatever city you're in, they have some sort of leadership program. Sometimes it's run by the chamber, sometimes it's independent. I think Leadership Hillsborough, Leadership Pinellas. I mean, those kind of organizations are geared towards people that want to meet more people. You sign up because you want to network. And it's targeted networking in the sense that the people that are there are probably the only one in their industry in that group. They're newer to the area because if you're new, you want to know these things, and you're similar age, wealth issues. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward 5 years. What would success look like for Tampa Bay, and what role do you hope to play in that story?
Yeah, it's funny because we've had some major sporting events here. We've had Super Bowls, we've had March Madness, we've had the Frozen Four. So I think one of the bigger events that we can get, we've had the Republic Convention. I would think it'd be cool to have something like a really big national event here that we haven't had before. So I think that's success. And for me, it's just helping recruit companies. Like, when the military's got such a big background here, we have this big conference in May every year called Soft Week. I think for me, it's just working with companies to make sure they have the talent they need to hire and stay and grow here. And then with these conferences come corporations relocations. And so I think being on the Economic Development Corporation board, being in a business where I recruit new executives to the area and network with them and get them connected, I think getting a major corporation to start here, grow here, and build a brand here. We obviously have the big ones like Raymond James and Jabil and TD SYNNEX, some of those huge corporations, but maybe another one. I think that would be the next 5 years is get another major one, and maybe not even have it. You think about ReliaQuest; they started here. That's a big success story we've got. and that's
Hmm.
organic. It's homegrown, which is great, and they're the best at what they do. So maybe you have one that's maybe one that starts here and kind of grows, and then maybe relocate one corporation that we didn't expect to get, and it'll be a major news.
I'm going to start something new, starting with this episode, a quick lightning round of 3 questions, and let's see how fast you can answer. The first one is going to be a softball. I'm going to lob it up to you. Why should companies and organizations connect with Elevate Inc.?
To get known faster in the community.
Love it. Best placed in Tampa for a power meeting.
Oxford Exchange.
Love it. Coffee or lunch? Why? Coffee or lunch meeting? Why?
Lunch, you get to connect deeper.
Okay, cool. Akash, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining Grab Coffee with me. I know you're a busy man, and I want to give you some of your time back. Thank you for joining me for a virtual cup of coffee and tea. And to my audience, thank you for listening to another episode of Grab Coffee with me, caffeinated by Dowden Golf Solutions. I hope you learned something today because I did. And if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, subscribe on all major streaming platforms so you don't miss what's brewing next. Until next time, keep your coffee strong and your conversations meaningful. And again, Akash, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day, buddy.
Hey, you too.